Hello everyone, hope you're all well, and thank you very much for tuning into my YouTube channel, and welcome to this program, Read Your Bible Through in a Year. We are in this Exodus, the fourth day. Following through this, we will be reading the Bible every single day. 300 in a year's time, we will have completely read the Bible. Now, this is day 4th, and we will be reading chapter 10, 11, and 12 of Genesis, and chapter 4 of the Gospel of Matthew. If you are just joined us, you can read chapters 1 through to 9, and the links are there, so you can, if you miss any of our day, you can always go back and view, so that you get the introduction and what I was talking about. Before we go to chapter 9, I just want to highlight two important points in chapter 9. That is how God allowed man to eat everything. Now, in verses 3, we see God allows the people to eat all the everything, not only the green plants, but he can eat everything. And also the other important thing is the covenant between God and Noah. The God and Noah, the commandments throughout the history, this covenant is very, very important and forms the basis. The covenant between God and Moses and God and Abraham are specific to Israel, but this covenant between God and Noah is the basis of all the other covenants. Now, we finished chapter 9 with the curse of Canaan. Now, chapter 10, we read about the table of nations, the three sons of Noah and their descendants, and where they settled. If you see, the Bible is getting narrowed down. It particularizes the things. So from creation of the mankind, then it goes to Adam and Eve, Cain and Abel, and it comes to the 10 genealogy, and narrows down to Noah, the flood, the Noah's children, and from there it narrows down to Abraham in chapter 11. So you need to concentrate on chapter 10, because that gives the list of the nations. Throughout the coming chapters and books, you will come across these names. For example, talk about Hivites in verses 15. Canaan was the father of the sons, blah blah, Hivites. So for example, the Hivites mentioned here is the same people whom the Israelites encountered when they reached the promised land. So it's mentioned here, and also mentions about their settlement, Sodom and Gomorrah. Everyone are familiar with that story. So the Hittites were, if you see, the Hivites are mentioned up until even King Solomon's days, when God asked them to destroy, but they ignored. So we read about them even in King Solomon's days. So this is what I mean when I say concentrate on the names, like for example Cush, Canaan, and Mizraim, and all those things. As and when this appears, you need to concentrate on all these things. And coming to chapter 11, the Tower of Babel, and people had a common language. So there are a couple of things about this building the Tower of Babel. One, it's the deliberate what you call a rejection of God's instructions to fill the earth, as we read in Genesis chapter 9 verses 1. The God blessed Noah and his sons, saying to them, be fruitful, increase in number, and fill the earth. That is his command. But here they settled down and they wanted to build. It's kind of idealizing the things. So they want to build a tower where they can reach heaven. So they want to build a temple. That is what a tower that reaches the heaven, and so that we may make a name for ourselves and not to be scattered over the face of the earth. So they made bricks. So that's the next stage of things happening. So God doesn't want his people to know that, to do that. That's why he causes a confusion. And again in chapter 11 we have another 10 another genealogy. So in chapter 5 we had a genealogy of 10 people post-flood, the pre-flood, so the genealogy from Adam to Noah. So this is before the flood. So up until this genealogy from Shem, the son of Noah, to Abram. So Abram, or he was called as Abram before he was called as Abraham. So Abram, the genealogy. There are two things which we need to know. One, this is it's a clear genealogy. It narrows down, and the second one, you can see the age of people reducing. Compared to the genealogy, the lifespan of 900 years, 906 years, etc. But here their lifespan narrows down in chapter 11. That's one thing you need to know. And from there we see Terah, the father of Abram. So they move to Canaan, but on the way to Canaan they come to Haran, and in Haran they stay there. So this is not a calling, but rather it's a nomadic move from a place where they Terah, the son of Abraham, usually Abraham being the eldest son will be mentioned in the genealogy. So Terah still being the head of the family is mentioned, gives him a specific authority that Terah was the father of Abraham. And that narrows down to the most important passage of the entire Bible, which is chapter 12, call of Abram. The promise to Abram is very, very important. It is mentioned throughout the Bible. At least this was mentioned twice to Abraham himself. You will read that again in chapter 17, and again in chapter 22 we will be reading about that. Once to Isaac, again it was mentioned again in Genesis chapter 26. We will read this promise he mentions to Isaac, and again to Jacob in Genesis chapter 28 we read about this promise, and again in New Testament Acts chapter 3 we mentioned that. Again in Romans chapter 4 we see this. In Galatians, book of Galatians, we read in chapter 3, and again in Ephesians chapter 2, and also this the Romans, Galatians, Ephesians, we read about this God's promise. So this is very throughout the Bible, this promise is very, very important. And also in chapter 6 we read Abraham traveled throughout the land as far as the great tree of Moriah at Shechem. At that time the Canaanites were in the land. So it shows the characteristics of Abraham, a nomadic life, moving from one place to another, and from there he moves to Egypt, where the place where they settled, there was a famine. Again we will be reading about Abram moving to Egypt in Genesis chapter 20. In a couple of days we will be reading about this. But here Abram moves to Egypt because there is a famine, and he asks his wife to tell the Egyptians, because Sarai was a very beautiful woman, so Egyptians might fall for her. So he says, when they see, don't tell them that is that you are my wife, rather tell them that you are my sister. So God inflicted the Egyptians with serious disease, and so that then they come to know that Abraham lied to them, and they send them away. So with that we finish the chapter 12. So there are lots of things you need to concentrate today, and I know everyone knows the Abraham's promise. Now in the New Testament we are going to see Matthew chapter 4. It's very interesting, like how we got narrowed down from creation of mankind now to Abraham. Now here we come from the genealogy of Jesus Christ, coming down to visit of Magi, birth of Jesus, then escape to Egypt. Now you are particularly to Jesus' baptism. In chapter 4 we will be seeing the temptation of Jesus. Before Jesus begins his ministry, the ministry begins by temptation. Like, he fasts for 40 days and 40 nights in the wilderness, and you have to concentrate on the dialogue between Jesus and Satan. That is very important. And also Jesus begins to preach. That's why you have to live in Nazareth. He went to live in Capernaum, and to fulfill how the prophecy of Isaiah comes to truth. So I want you to read specifically on that. And also chapter 4, the next step in Jesus' ministry is calling of the first disciple. And here the first miracle in Galilee, in synagogue, Jesus heals the sick. So this is the first miracle. But in John, the first miracle will be turning the water into wine. Matthew, we read about Jesus healing the sick person. So now, with that, the day 4 program is we come to an end. So remember chapter 10, 11 and 12, the important things. As I told you, make short notes. What does the chapter say? You don't need to write the entire description. What I want you to do is just read, just make note of, like for example, chapter 4 in Matthew. What are the things? A, the temptation of Jesus. Calling of the first disciple, Jesus begins to preach, Jesus heals the sick. So these are the important things happening in that particular chapter. So if you go through that notes, you can it's like a recapture of what is happening. So that is very, very important. So we are finished for the day 4. And also there was a quick suggestion. They were somewhere saying, why can't we have some competition in between to make this program very interesting? So I am planning to have a competition kind of thing. How, where, and when, I will give you sufficient time for preparing. I will prepare maybe online questions or things like that, and that will encourage you to read more, concentrate, read in between lines, and of course you will have great prizes to be won, not very normal, but very attractive prizes to be won. So please spread this word across as well to all your friends and family. Before we finish, don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel, and also press the bell icon, so you will be notified of the any updates and notifications and whatnot. So thank you very much once again for tuning into my YouTube channel, and I will see you tomorrow. The 5th day we will be reading chapter 13, 14 and 15 of book of Genesis, and chapter 5, the first part of chapter 5 of Matthew. I will see you tomorrow. Stay blessed. Thank you very much again.